Hi, welcome back to the workshop for episode 9 of the Shed of Dreams ES335 build. And this time we're finally going to move away from building jigs and get back onto building the actual guitar. And the first step in that is to see if I can actually get these ribs bent. Okay, so in the last couple of episodes we've made the rib bending form and we've made the external body mould. So now there really is nothing stopping us from getting these ribs made. And as I've said before, I'm going to be making the ribs out of this 1.5mm thick constructional veneer. So this is maple. It is very flexible, but I don't think there's any way at all it's going to go all the way around this mould, especially around the tight areas of the horns, etc., without some kind of treatment. Now the way this would normally be done is for the timber to be steamed. Now I don't have a steam box and I don't really see the point in making one just for this one build, so I'm going to explore another possibility. But first of all I'm going to get this veneer trimmed down to a more suitable size. Now I'm going to make the sides at about 35mm, which is a couple of mil oversized, and that'll give me a bit of scope for cleaning up and trimming, etc. And what I'm going to do is just select the piece of veneer with the straightest grain and without any knots or anything like that in it, because I think that's going to help me in my quest to get this bent up. And having looked at it, I think this is probably the sheet that I want to be using. So I'm going to get this onto the bandsaw. I'm going to cut two pieces off it, roughly 35mm. Okay, so the first thing I'm going to do is just kind of ascertain how far this stuff will bend without any steaming or anything like that. I think that's going to give me a really good idea of what I have to do to get this to work. So to start with, I'm just simply going to clamp these two little bits on this end. Now I'm pretty confident it's going to go around this bit without any problem at all. And I'm hardly putting any pressure on that, and it is. And it's gone down quite nicely. Now how far into there it's going to go, I don't know. It's actually, so it's gone most of the way in there. But I can feel with the amount of pressure I'm having to put on there and the resistance that I'm getting that there's just no way on earth that it's going to go around these sections here without a bit of help. So to that end, we're going to have to do a bit of steaming on this wood. Now I've already said that I don't have a steam box or anything like that I can use on this build. However, I have seen another technique and I have got the equipment that is necessary for that. And it's my old friend, the electric iron. I really hope our Gert doesn't watch this one, she'll kill me. Now when I've seen an iron used to bend wood before, they've used a particular technique. What they've done is they've wrapped the wood in a wet cloth and then they've wrapped that in aluminium foil and then applied the heat for quite a long time with the electric iron to get it into a position where it could be bent. They've also pre-soaked the wood for quite a long time as well. However, in that situation, the wood was actually about 1/4 inch thick, which is roughly 4 times thicker than the wood I'm using. So I don't think I necessarily have to go to those extremes to get this wood to bend how I want it to. So what I'm proposing to do is to just heat this wood up under a damp cloth with the iron. And I'm going to concentrate on the area that will run through this part of the body. And I'll just heat it up until I think it's kind of pliable enough, and then we'll attempt to get it onto the form. Now we're going to have to do this in 2 stages, so we need to heat the wood up, pre-bend it and clamp it onto this form, then leave it probably overnight until it's cooled down and kind of dried out and taken the shape that we've clamped it to. Once that's done, we can take it off here and then we can glue it up and re-clamp it onto this form. That's the theory. We'll see how it works in practice. Okay, so I suppose there's no time like the present. I've just looked at this veneer and it's all very straight grained, so I don't think it really matters which bit I use for where. So I'm just going to start heating up this end. Nice damp tea towel. Okay, here goes nothing. Now it's started to curl up quite nicely, so that could actually be a good sign that just that little bit of heat is enough to start to make it move and become more pliable. And that has become very much more pliable. I'm just going to give it a bit more heat and then we'll get it onto the job. Well, that's worked an absolute treat. I'm really surprised at how well that went. Typically, I lost the little caul that I made for this horn. God only knows where that's gone, so I'm going to need to make another one of those before I do the glue up. But other than that, it's fitting really, really well. There's a couple of little bits around here that aren't touching, but what I intend to do is to supplement the clamps with some strong cord when I actually glue it up. But I'm really happy with that. That's gone better than I ever could have imagined it would do first time round. No cracking or anything of the timber, didn't feel it giving, just bent really, really smoothly. To be honest, I'm flabbergasted that I've managed to do that with nothing more than a household iron and a wet tea towel. So this has to be left now to kind of cool down, dry out, and just to acclimatise itself to this shape. I'm going to leave it overnight and I'll get back to this tomorrow and we'll get it glued up. Okay, so this has been drying for 24 hours now, so finally it's time to get it out of the clamps and see how we've done. Okay, so this end of the veneer, where we didn't do anything, we didn't heat it up at all, hasn't really held its shape at all, but I was kind of expecting that. However, that is really pleasing for me. I'm very happy with the way that that's bent. So I'm quite confident now that we can press ahead with this and get some glue on it and see what we can do. I've fabricated another little block to go on the end of there to replace the one that I lost. But really importantly, before we put any glue on anything, I'm going to just give the form a coat of paste wax, because the last thing we want to do is to glue the timber to this, because that would make me look foolish. And also get some onto these cauls. And what I've also done is I've just cut some tiny little wedges with the intention of putting them under the edge of these cauls. Anywhere that it's not quite going down where it should, we'll just put a wedge in, see if that can get it down better. And I've also got some lengths of paracord which I will tie through these holes to really push down in between the clamps. So realistically, I don't think there's anything more to be done at this stage than to get some glue on this and get it back in the clamps. Okay, so that's down. I've had a good look at it and I can't see any gaps. I've had to do quite a lot of binding on this section, but it all seems to be down now. It all seems fairly solid, so I'm happy with that. And I've had to slightly amend my procedure at this end because I split my block in two, but it's actually gone down really well around the tip of the horn, and it was just up a little bit on the top, so I just clamped it with this sash clamp. Okay, so it's the next morning, the glue's good and dry, so just get all these clamps off, unwind all this cord, and we'll see how we've done. Fingers crossed. Okay, so there's the first half done. I'm just looking around it now and there doesn't seem to be any gaps at all, which is really nice. I was a little bit worried that 3mm was going to be a little bit too thin with only 2 laminates, but this is actually quite stiff. I'm not going to try and bend it too much, but that is quite rigid. Obviously this section has sprung back a little bit, there's more play in that, but the section around the horn is very firm. I'm surprised at how firm that actually came out. And I'm also really surprised that this worked. I tend to be quite positive about things, but I really couldn't picture this in my head coming together first time like this. So I'm very, very pleased with this. What I need to do now is kind of try it against the mould and roughly trim it to shape so we can get it clamped into that external mould so it doesn't lose this form while I make the next one. Okay, so that's the first rib loosely clamped into the form. Generally it's gone in there quite nicely. There are 1 or 2 tiny little inconsistencies, especially around this kind of horn area. I had to do a little bit of a modification to the form here just to allow me to leave a little bit of extra material in this area so I can trim that down more effectively once I've got the block that I'm going to glue in here a bit further along, so I know where I'm cutting to. But other than that, I'm genuinely really happy with the way that this has come together. So I suppose that only really leaves one more thing to do. Let's make another one. Okay, so it's a day and a half later, and we've got the other one out of the mould. And I must say, I'm really, really happy with this. They've both turned out really nicely. There's 1 or 2 tiny little gaps on the edges, but I think on the whole they've joined together really well, and they're both very consistent in their shape, so I'm going to call that a success. So the next stage is to get both of these firmly clamped into the mould, so that I know they're not going to move and change shape before I get the next couple of bits done. And I need to then start working on the centre block and the little block that are going to go in the front of the ears, and also there's some material that will need to go in the back where it joins together. But that's a job for next time, so I'm going to leave this one here and just go away and be really happy that I've managed to make this bit work. I'm going to be back very, very soon with the next episode. So as always, like if you've liked, subscribed if you haven't already done so. That really does help the channel, and I'll look forward to seeing you next time. Thanks a lot for watching. Bye bye.